Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. Your host, Tyler Smith here. I hope you've all been doing extremely well. So today's topic, this is something I just mostly kind of thought about covering before I got out of work today. But it is a topic that I've kind of wanted to talk about for a while. It's not necessarily an esoteric or an occult topic per se, but it does tie in. So let's get started. For lack of a better term or title, I guess the theme of this is along the lines of this, I'll call it the societal trap, or the trap of society. Okay. So, as we all know, especially people who, are subscribed to my YouTube, people who do their own research, people who are really thinkers, they think for themselves. They take everything, with a grain of salt until it becomes more experiential knowledge and understanding, until you can truly, download that and process it for yourself. So the societal trap. Most of society is kind of thrown through the meat grinder, so to speak. You kind of grow up with whatever belief system your parents impress upon you, because, your subconscious mind is basically, it's like the motherboard on a computer. It's going to be set within the first 7 years, of your life. Pretty much those first 7 years, your subconscious soaks everything up like a sponge. There's not a whole lot of conscious stuff going on. It's all mostly subconscious. So you're absorbing all that, and that's kind of setting the hardwire for the computer, for the person, almost for the rest of their lives. A lot of, things that people could consider traumatic, that affect their decisions for their entire life, can be traced back to their childhood. Now, for me personally, I had an amazing childhood. I had a really good childhood. I had really good parents. So I'm super grateful and fortunate. That's super, super fortunate in my circumstance. That's something to be really happy about, because not everyone gets that. And I think that's pretty disappointing. It's really, really sad. A lot of people are brought into this world in the middle of a mess. But it is part of the plan, I guess, that your soul chooses its incarnation before it actually incarnates here, and it descends through the spheres, through the higher realms. Your soul's actually, it's not just happening all at once like that. It's a process, and your soul is kind of deciding where it's going to go. Now, as your soul moves through down into the layers and it gets ready to make its, incarnation, that's kind of a quick process. The soul is looking for exactly where it needs to incarnate. So it's looking for a manifestation or an incarnation where it can learn the lessons that you need to learn, in this life. But a lot of people are born into families that are not complete, or they're broken, or there's something going on. And that's something that, especially with people that I know who have, they come from pretty rough families, or parents that didn't care about them, or things of that nature. We've always tried to understand, why is that? Why are such good people, put into such shitty families sometimes? And it has something to do with the experience that soul is wanting to experience. It actually decided that experience itself before it manifested here. So they say. So a lot of spiritual people say. I don't have access to that information for sure, but that's just what I've heard. thrown around over and over. And it makes sense. It makes sense because this is all us anyway. All the things that are happening to us, are they really happening to us, or are they happening for us so that we can experience pain and then grow? I'm getting a little off track though. We were talking about the societal trap. This all goes into it. It plays into it. But it's not the essence. So you're born into your family. The first 7 years, however those go, sets the subconscious programming basically for the rest of your life. Then you go to school, and let's face it, the educational system's a catastrophe. It doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't teach you how to think. They teach you what to think. They teach you to memorize a whole bunch of things, and it's knowledge that, your brain can only hold so much information. Someone like me who has memorized lectures, that is something that I do in my Masonic Lodge, is I do lectures, and that takes a lot of memorization, and you can only memorize so much. So with all these years of school that you're being put through the meat grinder, how much of that information that you were in school for however many years, how much of that information are you actually going to use? Probably hardly any of it. Even guys like George Washington, and some say George Washington was an incarnation of the ascended master, Saint Germain, and he had all these interesting visions, which I haven't really looked into that pretty deep, but it is super interesting. George Washington definitely there were spiritual forces, I will say, watching over his life journey, because he had such a pivotal role, especially in Freemasonry in the forming of this country. There's a whole mystical component to that you could look into if you want. But what I was getting at was George Washington and guys like him and Abraham Lincoln, they only had like a 5th grade education, of normal school. And those guys had more common sense and more gnosis, or more knowledge and more understanding than people who have longer educations today. Why is that? It's because this system, I'm not going to call it evil, because in a lot of ways the system is just trying to push you into who you really are. And that actually means escaping it. That actually means escaping the system, escaping the matrix, escaping the artificiality, the artificial for the real, for the genuine. So what I see is a lot of people, they go through school, it doesn't matter whether they go to college or not, but somewhere along the lines they get caught up. They get caught up by something. They get pulled from their life's purpose, what it is they love to do, whatever it is that brings them joy, to make them fit in. And really, it's not so much anybody forcing it. Although there's so many rules and regulations in this society, it's hard to have an existence outside of those rules unless you move somewhere. And I've been places before where you can be free. There are really no rules. The only rule is don't mess with anyone else and their stuff. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, you're allowed to do pretty much whatever you want. There are places like that are like basically little Edens or heavens on earth. And those are really nice places to go and visit. Places that are kind of undisturbed by the outside world, we'll put it that way. But what happens to most people is they dream about all these things, the society through the television, the news, all the propaganda that you're constantly absorbing on a day-to-day basis. Subconscious symbolism, there's symbolism everywhere. And basically all of these things are to push the soul into a situation, Universal Master talks about this, where the soul gets shelled. Your physical vessel, it's becoming less filled with your soul essence, and it's becoming more shelled. It's becoming more hardened and solidified, rather than being more ethereal and free. So there's a lot of things that can happen to people in this system. And I really wanted to put this into it, this perspective, or this perspective. The whole thing about relationships and love and what those things are, we are given such a false such a false sense of what that is in this society, that a lot of people get caught up in the game. They get caught up in the emotions. They get caught up in the feel good, in the moment. You know, it almost makes me think of Eric Cartman's heat of the moment. I can just see Eric Cartman singing it now. But exactly, it's getting caught up in the heat of the moment. People aren't taught how to think for themselves. And if they don't have friends or family that are going to tell them otherwise, they're just going to follow what all the institutions are telling them to do. The schools, the workplaces, all of these things are going to give you a very false sense or idea of what love and all of these concepts really are. They're going to teach you, especially as a man, that you need to chase. You need to chase women. Rather than, they don't teach man to be magnetic. I've seen different terms for males. There's like alpha males, but then there's like that's like the dominating type of male, like, the jock guy that's all like, has to be cooler than everyone else, and he has to be the big dog or whatever. That's very animalistic. There's another kind of male, and I don't think it's beta. Alpha? Is it alpha? I don't know, but whichever one it is. The only reason I know this is because I came across some YouTube videos, quote unquote, randomly. But there's another kind, I want to say maybe it's theta or something like that. It's not the alpha, and it's not the submissive one either. It's the male who is quiet, observant. He doesn't chase because he lets things come to him. And it's also the man who's on his own path. And what I mean by his own path is he's chasing his higher calling. And this goes with females too. This isn't like, doesn't go one way or the other, but typically men chase women. That's typically how it goes. And it's this game. And you see it in the movies, especially like Disney propagating all of these, I'll call them cutesy little games, romantic shit. We'll put big ass quotations on that. So people don't get an idea of what love really is. And there's all these synthetic things. There's all these things to distract you, whether it's entertainment, whether it's trying to find somebody to fill the empty void that's within yourself if you're not following your purpose. All of these things to get you caught up to the point, for some people it happens that maybe they accidentally, had a child or something that was somebody that they really shouldn't have. Maybe it happened in high school, maybe it's, sometime when they were young, and they weren't really ready for that yet. And a lot of people, they'll willingly, even though they have the education on such things, it's easy to get caught up. It's easy to get caught up in the moment because this reality's, it's so shitty on a day-to-day basis in the Matrix. Remember, reality's not this way. Society and people are this way. The Earth is an amazing place. This place, it has infinite potential. When I mean infinite potential, I really mean that. But there is the consciousness of a lot of people that is keeping this planet in a prison state. A prison state because that's what they want. They want slavery. They want to be told what to do because they can't think for themselves. And so I end up seeing a lot of people that just don't seem very happy. And I think that's what made me think of it today, for today's video. They're maybe like in this relationship or whatever, and they're working all the time. Like they have to work like 10 to 12 hours almost every day to even make money to pay the rent. Is that person really fulfilling their life's purpose? I don't think so. I'm not saying that the universe doesn't have a purpose for it or that it didn't happen for no reason. Because there's a reason that things happen, that they manifest. But if that's the more conscious an individual is before they go through the meat grinder of society. If you have parents that are conscious individuals and they can tell you when you're a little bit younger, what it's really going to be like, instead of just, putting a fancy, I don't know. I totally lost my train of thought. Okay, what was I getting at? People who are stuck, working a whole bunch, and I know a lot of these people, and they're in a situation that they really don't want to be in. It's not that it didn't happen for no reason. It's just that they weren't given the information to make choices that were best for them, in their best interest, in the best interest of their higher self, because this society keeps information away from people, essentially. But here's the other flip side. In today's society, there's really no excuse because all the information's out there. So it's really up to the individual whether they want to consume garbage or do they want to absorb knowledge that empowers them, gives them more awareness, more consciousness to make decisions that are based in alignment with their highest self or highest potential. And a lot of people, I think, have gone through so much trauma in their life, even early on in today's life, that they start to shut down, they start to get hard. Their heart starts to get hard, their mind can start to get numb, just the having to deal with reality on a day-to-day basis. I think the society is designed to trap you in this way so that your life essence becomes basically food for something. Perhaps for darker forces. So there is a purpose to all this. I'm not saying that it has no purpose, but this video is more of like a warning. And I probably none of you that are watching this, really, this is probably not new to you. I'm sure you've all watched conspiracy theories to a degree and just things that educate you about how messed up the reality is. And what we really need is we just need more conscious individuals. We need more people who are willing to know themselves, regardless of how hard that is. And that's the thing about this matrix which traps you. These traps are actually very valuable lessons if you can overcome them. But that's the problem, is the more early on you get caught in these different societal traps, maybe it's even going down a job field or going to college and doing something that is going to pay your way through life, but it's really just tearing your soul apart. It's not giving you any purpose, no life purpose whatsoever. And see, that's what was happening to me when I was in college, a few years after high school. So this would have been like 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. I forget when I stopped going to college. It may not even been till like 2013, 2014. I don't think I was still going that long. I think I'd stopped going to school by 2014. But it just seemed like I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. I just knew it. It didn't feel right. And the spirit was screaming at me to leave. And sure enough, I left, and my life got a hell of a lot more interesting after that. Things started to open up for me. One of the things that opened up was I reconnected with an old friend from high school, and I learned about this whole scene of music because I was really, really playing a lot of music at the time. I'm not playing as much music now. I'm not as passionate about music, I'm not gonna lie. It's just I'm really kind of burnt out in a lot of ways with the whole music, thing. I did it for a really long time, and I'm not saying that I don't enjoy it. It's just I don't like it to feel like a job or something that I have to do. So I just don't do it very often anymore. I'm really picky about who I play for and where I play, and because I realized that a lot of the people I was playing music for were not really even the kind of people that I would even want to have in my life. You know, we're talking about people that just want to party all the time, like, and just do drugs, and you know, that's you're just running away from life if you're doing that all the time. I'm sorry. If it's for medicinal reasons, if you are in a lot of physical pain, you know, I can understand that, but it's a way of life I don't really understand. Some people really, really like to they really like to work hard. So there's like this upward thing. They work, and then they relax. And they calm down, and they mellow down. And it's this really upward and downward, like, kind of pattern. Kind of a crash, and then, you know, party, and then, you know, go work to make all the money back that you lost, you know, spending it on whatever. It's a crazy world. So I think one of the first key components too, and this was something that, like, Freemasonry taught me a lot, is being conservative about your energy. And you know, even when it comes to money and things like this, a lot of people, as soon as they make money, they want to go and spend it. And that's the kind of person who will never have a lot of money. And there's actually a connection between this and sexual energy. People who want to expend their sexual energy all the time tend to kind of be the same people who want to spend money frivolously all the time. And the more, you know, this kind of goes in with what we were talking about earlier, the societal trap, because all the movies, all the music, I mean, even more so today, it's all based in sex and, like, the physical. And there's nothing bad about these things. I'm not saying that sex is bad or the carnal, you know, indulging in the carnal is a bad thing. But when that's all that you do, and there's no purpose to it, and it doesn't mean anything, that's when you start to get in trouble. Because then you're just absorbing the energies of a whole bunch of people that you don't want, that you're just casually meeting up with, instead of having a meaningful connection, third eye, you know, higher mind connection. And that will get you into a lot of trouble. So I guess I won't talk too much longer. I won't do this too much longer. I don't want to make this a super long video, but just think about different societal traps that, you know, you think you've gone along so far in this journey, and then you can get tripped up so easy. All it takes is one bad decision. You know, we could even use the example of car accidents. We just had a friend who passed away in a motorcycle accident. These things can happen in the blink of an eye. You know, so you just got to be careful, make smart decisions, educate yourself, educate your children, educate them so that they know that, you know, you don't have to be fooled by the shitty matrix. Just because society looks like crap does not mean that your paradigm has to be that. Don't get pulled into everyone else's energy that's in a discordant energy. Find people that are on the same frequency as you. You know, kind of the same vibratory rate. So that you can actually evolve and grow. And if you do make mistakes help us grow. They help us. Sometimes the best way to learn who we are is honestly to learn who we are not. And the only way we can do that is by actually sometimes walking down the wrong path and sometimes making a big mistake, because that will be a catalyst which, you know, further propels you into the direction that you're meant to go. I'm not just saying make mistakes all the time, but just take all these things into consideration. You know, and don't allow yourself to be manipulated like that. You know, the society is very much run by dark forces, and these forces are intelligent, and they're not really bad. They have their purpose in the universe, and that's something that I used to be guilty of, was blaming everything else. Like, I don't even want to be here. I come from somewhere else. Like, this planet doesn't even feel right to me. Like, this society has never made sense to me. The things that are important to other people are not important to me. It's why I have a really hard time, especially with the older that I get, relating to people. I have a really hard time relating to people anymore. You know, I can probably relate to almost everyone on a mundane level, but a lot of people just get caught up in the mundane shit and they never learn more, they never grow. Their whole life is consumed by basically what I would consider junk material. And you know, even that can be transmuted into gold. Even the abyss is filled with the filth, you know, quote unquote bad stuff of all the previous worlds. You know, it's all the muck. But in the bullshit, you know, sometimes is where the sparks of gold. That's where the good stuff really is in, you know, it has to do with the whole metaphor of, you know, plants, flowers, they come from the dirt. You know, it's dirt. You know, or mud, or the ground. You know, it's not the prettiest thing, but from that, sometimes from confusion, from trials, from getting caught up, we can then, you know, learn the lesson if we want to fix things, and then take it in a direction that's going to help us evolve and grow. And then we become the beautiful flower. So, yeah, there are other things, you know, that I probably can't think of right off the bat now that are different societal traps. But yeah, it's just an interesting world. It's a really strange place. And you know, we have to remember that there are correspondences in the above, in the higher planes, which manifest here in Malkut. So there's a reason for all of these things happening. They have their place within the cosmos. But having all this information, having this conscious awareness, to not get so caught up into something that would take our whole life's purpose, our whole direction in life, in a way that we wouldn't want to, you know, just try not to get caught up. Try not to get caught up in the game of society. Don't hang out with people who can't see past the illusions of things. It's okay to like people, you know, that have a little bit more mundane concerns. I have lots of friends who aren't really into this stuff, but those aren't the people that I'm hanging out with. Those aren't the people that I'm constantly spending my time with. Because a lot of those people, even though they're really nice people, I know a lot of people who are some of the most, you know, unconditional, pure love people I know, but guess what? They get caught up all the time. For me, you know, I'm kind of picking up messes all day long. I work in a grocery store. I work at Kroger, so I'm constantly breaking down boxes. I'm condensing reality. I'm a big fan of condensing things. I like to break things down to their component parts. And that's one of the things I dislike so much about, you know, I see so many young people, particularly young women, but this goes the other way too, because I've been manipulated by, you know, pretty bad people. That really only happened one time, where I was manipulated by somebody who was just not a good person. They basically lied completely about what they were doing and who they were, but that was a bad situation anyway. Altogether, I should not have, you know, that shouldn't have happened. But for the most part, I hear lots of tragic, you know, stories about, you know, especially women when they're younger getting hurt really bad because they get so caught up in the picture perfect fantasy love, or what a relationship should be, or that these bad guys, these quote unquote bad guys, are like what's cool, or like what they should go after, or they should go after older guys or whatever. But it's a trap. It's a trap to give you a false sense of what is real love is. Or I don't even really like the word love anymore, you know, to be honest, because it's such a generic word, and there's so many different kinds of love for different kinds of people in your life. So just when people say I love you all the time, it's nice to hear that, but when I hear it overly used, it becomes kind of like I become numb to it because it has less meaning. Sometimes the people who love the most are actually the ones who don't like to say it all the time. And I've always been kind of one of those people. I'm like, I don't really like to say it all the time. Because sometimes the more you say it, the more you're just excited in the moment. Like, oh, I love you so much. Like, yeah, bro, are you just really high right now? Do you actually mean that? You know, and there's a whole culture of people based, you know, that's based on people basically chemically making themselves so that they can be happy. So who are they really? Who are those people? Who are those people at their core? They don't even really know. So yeah, it's it's strange how easily people are fooled. And you know, I've always kind of known it. And I'm not exempt from making mistakes, as I've already said. I'm victim. Well, I'm not going to claim victimhood here, you know, honestly. I'm just going to say that I misunderstood. I wasn't given all the knowledge I needed. You know, I had a really good childhood, maybe babied a little bit too much. You know, that's more my problems, is I was pretty much gifted everything I needed. So I always had a high expectation for reality, a really high expectation. And when I see that people they accept so little, they accept so low, they accept such base, it's sad when they could definitely have more. And I'm not even talking about material things. I'm talking about really just being in control of their reality. You know, if you live in a little apartment and you're by yourself and you have the things that you need, that person's way more free than the person who lives in a big ass house but never even has time to live there because they're working all the time to make the money to have the house. And then by the time they get home, there's all these like chores and stuff that have to be done on the house. So a lot of people, they don't have, that's what I really wanted to get to. They don't have their foundation covered. And this is another thing I like about Masonry. Masonry teaches you to have a sure and solid foundation. Because if you don't have that, you're just going to be running in circles in the square around the base of the temple the whole time. And you're never going to elevate. You know, things like survival, like food, water, clothing, shelter. Those are all the things that before you even get into magic, you know, you probably want to make sure that those things are taken care of first. And there are things you could do, you know, magically or whatever to manifest those things, even if you don't have them. You know, maybe you're living with somebody else. You know, maybe go find a place in the woods if you can't have privacy in your own home. But if you really want like a solid practice, you know, this is for those of you who are wanting to take your occult practices beyond what I have. I haven't really taken my practices super, super far, you know, but I have learned a lot in this quote unquote reality. I'm connected to some high on forces. You know, I know this because of the synchronicities and the information that I'm led to every single day. The Spirit is guiding me to gather and to have the right information at the right time, especially so I can, you know, give, you know, videos and do videos like this, so I can spread the news of the great work, spread consciousness on this planet so that we can have a better experience here. You know, whether you want to have a heaven on earth or a hell on earth, you know, those are pretty subjective terms. They would mean different things to different people, depending on what you like and what you don't like. You know, I'd like to use the example of Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. You know, his hell is like being in this beautiful garden with this giant tree and all these little like cute little animals, but they're just singing to him all the time and like doing music, and it's so happy, and it makes Frieza pissed. So that's Frieza's hell. It's probably what somebody else's heaven would be. So yeah, that's, you know, just make sure you have a sure and solid foundation. You're not running in circles all the time, so that you can actually spend time on your true will. So you're not just trying to pick up the broken pieces that are scattered all the time and run around like a chicken with your head cut off. You actually have your solid foundation, you know, you have your place, and then you can move forward and do the great work. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. Thank you all for watching. I will hopefully be able to post some more on here soon. And as always, have a great day, and I will see you on the flip side.